for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them.
Yo. It's an interesting situation. I've already talked about it a little bit, and I don't know who actually listened to that. But I've now been given by my father an apartment because he had the feeling that the tension between me and the rest of them was a little bit too much. And the truth is that it's not so much the tension between me and them, it's just the tension I'm feeling in myself. And that for them is a little bit too intense. And now something I would like to point out is I feel really uncomfortable how red my hands look. And why is my nose always so red? Yeah, sure, but that's probably just the way energy flows, right? I'm not quite sure about this. So this is my new apartment, and it's roughly, 2 kilometers away from where I used to live. And it's a good walking distance. You can also run it fairly easily. When you're running it, it's like 10 minutes. Walking, more like 30, depending on how fast you walk. But yeah, so last night I came here, and because I know about transitions, and I know about spirituality, and I know about how the flow of energy feels like, and because I have a different perspective on disease and sickness than most people, which is actually more the traditional way of seeing these things. And so yesterday I came here, I carried a few things which are now somewhat organized or somewhat scattered in a more or less organized way. And now the problem is usually that you have to fill the space that you now occupy with your presence. And there's nothing in here except for the things I carried here. I also rejected all offers of help of getting me a kitchen because I want to build that myself. I also rejected all offers to bring all my stuff here in one go because I want to do this with my own strength, because I don't have a car. And if somebody would buy me a car, then I could do it. But if nobody buys me a car, I simply don't have a car. And that surely is quite an interesting thing. To simply say, well, when somebody would give me a car, I would have one. But I don't buy one unless I'm being given one. But maybe at some point you just have to buy one anyway. Now, this is a little bit, it's often when I record, a part of me never feels like it, but the part that felt like it pushed through and did it anyway. So there's always this kind of balance between how much do you like doing what you're doing, and are you willing to sacrifice the feeling of I hate this for the feeling of nice, I did it. So you can also hear that this is still a little bit hollow. I don't have a carpet here. maybe I can just show you around a little. You know, I don't want to make this overly, but this is one room because I'm restricted to the laptop. These are basically all the things that I have here. This is where I slept. This goes into what you may call the living room, then the kitchen, which has no kitchen in it. It's just a potential kitchen. So now a part of me really felt like I was being carted off to some kind of other place, right? It's like, we want to get rid of you because you're making life very complicated for us. And that's the problem that some people have, that if I'm around them and I don't speak, they're being confronted with their fear of having done something wrong. And that makes them feel really uneasy. It makes them feel really uneasy. Maybe I was also, because my energy level certainly has been rising, you could say that maybe as you're getting stronger, to most people in this kind of world, it's getting kind of unbearable to stay around you, which isn't your fault or mine, it's just the way it is. And so the people I was living with had a hard time dealing with my presence, which was me being around and simply being around, often not talking, but then, you know, I would go to the kitchen and get some food and then go back. I didn't really do anything, but that was already too much for them, because, you know, my will just got stronger than all these desires to speak with people who only speak to have a good time, or, you know, all kinds of things. And now yesterday I had all these offers, yeah, we can just put all your things into the car and then drive it here. And then I said, no, I don't want it. Because I don't want to be carted off like something you just brush under the carpet, because that's what they've been doing all their lives with all their problems. And every time I moved, I usually had help from my parents, which is a word I don't really want to use, simply because there are a lot of intense emotions in that kind of area. And usually they did it, yeah, my father was in charge, he would just put everything into the car and then, in a very stressful way, drive it all to wherever I live, and then buy me things or put things there and say, here, this is it. And now he wants to do the same thing again. And I just don't get it. So he's like, yeah, I also have a kitchen for you, and I also have this and that. And I say, I don't want it. Just keep it. I don't want it. You know, I want to earn these things. You know, it's already, to me, somewhat a disaster that at the age of 34, you know, it's ridiculous to think like this, because that's just the kind of mentality that gets injected into you in this twisted system. And I don't like it. I don't like this way of life. I don't like this way of life. Not really. Because it's all about, you know, seclusion and separation. It's not really life for most people. Yeah, we are here in Germany, and there's Moroccans. They live a bit better, because they have community. You know, they have some kind of tradition that allows them to do the things that they're doing in a community and for the community. And it's really hard to do anything for anyone these days, because as soon as you give them something, they either start rejecting you or they just get really greedy. And so you just stop giving, right? And the way I see it now is that I'm giving on the internet because I said this is what I do, and so I keep doing it. But now I'm actually quite glad I don't have internet here. There's no internet here. And so what I have to do, that's just something that, it's just like that. And it feels a little bit tedious, but I also have to say that I quite like it. That I'm recording these videos now, I cannot do a live stream, which is good because it puts a little bit more distance between me and whatever my audience is. Because live streams is kind of feeding greed, right? Why do we need live streams? I record something and then I go and I upload it. Well, and now I don't have internet here, so I have to walk back and forth between my parents' place. But the strange thing is, I also know why I'm doing this. Wow. Because parents often, they just want to have the feeling you still kind of need them. And sometimes it's nice to just let them do their thing as parents, right? So that they can worry about you and they can do what they do as parents. And I think that's just how it is. I've never really been a parent. Not really. I once was a foster parent, you could say, for a couple of months. But then the relationship ended, and since it wasn't my child, I could just leave. Which sounds like, I don't know if it sounds like a drawback, or I don't know if it sounds like a benefit. But I left, and I realized that it's much easier to love a woman who had your child, because she could never say to you, it's not your child, so you cannot say anything about this, right? And that was also one of the reasons I left, because I was feeling that she would never really open up to me, or any man, because she just felt rejected. Maybe that was an excuse, but it worked, and I moved on. And now I'm here. And yesterday I carried all these things. Well, it's not that much, but it was enough, because I hadn't left my house, or the house where I was living, for, it felt like 2 months, or maybe it was 3. I'm entirely uncertain. Maybe it was just 5 weeks, but it felt like a lifetime. And so it was the first time I left the house on foot. The second time, the first time we walked here. And then, my dad wanted to take the car, and I said, I'm walking, you can join me if you like, but I'm not gonna drive there. Anyway, and so then we came here, looked at the apartment, went back, and then I immediately just started packing things, amongst others my mattress, a few clothes, some towels, some kind of bucket, and my kettle, ceremonial cacao, like a thermos bottle, tea, just stuff like this. Random things you think you might need in an empty place. Some blankets. This is just like a slice of wood which I use as a chopping board. this is roughly what I picked up. And then I went and I carried that, and I had a whole huge traveling backpack. And then I had one more backpack in front, and then I had like a bag on top of my head, and I started walking, and I continued walking until I was here. And sure, in between I felt like, my God, this is a drag. This is really a drag. And then I arrived, and then I changed the tag on the bell, the name tag, and then I went up here, and then I put down my things, and then I took the bucket and hot water, and then I just wiped everything, and all the surfaces, like in this room, the so-called living room, and then yeah, it just had to come out this way. And then it's just constantly this voice in my head, and it says, move out. Move out. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to simply go now and just, but I think it says each day, right? It's like step by step, right? Sometimes you just have to retreat slowly but surely. And that's what I'm doing at the moment, and it's very hard to find this kind of refined, or yeah, maybe it is a refined attitude to moving and to disattaching yourself, that it's not like a clean cut, but more like a transition, which is something actually I've never had or never felt. Yeah, and now I cleaned everything, and then I made a bath, and when I arrived, one of my neighbors, and he is Moroccan, he had a basket of fruits for some reason, and he said, yeah, my wife collects these from, I don't know, where they would normally have thrown it away. Do you want it? And then I said, yeah. See, now I'm opening up. And I had the idea that I would do a cacao ceremony, which I'm trying to avoid. I'm really serious about it. I'm really trying to avoid doing the cacao ceremony because I don't have sugar. But that's part of the cleanse. But it's just like a little bit, it just tastes a little bit less good. But what is taste, right? What is tastes good? Because the effect is probably much better without the sugar. If I would have honey, I'd use it. But yesterday, when I came here, I'm just going to start preparing it. So yesterday, when I came here, much because I don't have a lot of gas at the moment. And I don't know when I will have more. So I have to use what I have. But also not waste it overly much. So a kettle is easy. Because it heats up the water. Yeah. Yeah, so this is also over now. So maybe there's more for one. But it's like, I mean, you don't put sugar into ayahuasca. So if you're too used to eating everything with sugar, then eventually you won't like anything else. And that's the experience I've made. That if you eat everything with sugar, then you just want to eat sugar all the time. But anyway, I was just talking about this. Yeah, I don't have a spoon or anything that I can use to stir. Well, that's not true. I have this knife. The only problem I have is that this is like, it has like a thing that nothing sticks, right? So I have to be careful. Yeah. Now what I can already say from the way I feel about being alone in this room and having no internet is, which is a natural state, to simply be somewhere where there's no internet. Now what I can do at the moment is what I'm doing right now. Which is recording. Because I was thinking, what am I supposed to do now? And what I felt was, well, simply what you've been doing all this time already. And yesterday when I arrived, I also used an irrigator to cleanse my colon. And that felt incredibly liberating. After I had cleaned, I used the irrigator and then I poured in hot water into the bathtub. And I had been, right, from the fruit basket, my neighbor said, you can have this, or you can take what you want from it. If you want, you can take all of it. I took a radish, and I took apples, and I took strawberries, and I also took a clementine. And I had the feeling, what can I put into the hot water for some kind of, I don't know, to just cleanse, because I didn't have oil. And so I just used the clementine, because I know there's vitamin C in there, and that's good for the skin, and I would eat it which is something from Ayurveda where they say, never put anything on your skin that you wouldn't want to eat. And that basically sums up all the beauty products or cleaning products that people use, including soap. Because I wouldn't want to eat soap. I also wouldn't want to eat toothpaste. I wouldn't want to eat any of these creams that are on the market. Yeah. But I would eat coconut fat, which I'm doing. And I would eat clementine. And so there was a clementine in my bath, and that gave it a vibrant and fresh smell. And I used the peel to rub my skin under my arms. And that felt really nice. And that was the first time I could really do that without being afraid of being judged for it. And that's a really weird thing to discover at the age of 34. Because I had never had a bathtub on my own. And the bathtub that is in my parents' home is just collecting dust, or is only being used to wash the hair, but nobody really takes a bath. And I think one reason nobody takes a bath is because nobody respects other people's privacy. If you would want to go into the bath on your own for, let's say, an hour, people would, if they wanted, they would just walk in. It's like, there's no privacy with some people. There's no respect because I'm just gonna do this because I wanna do this now. You cannot keep me from going into the bathroom. It's just so disrespectful. Because that means I can never have a quiet moment with myself without anybody coming and displaying symptoms of anxiety. Because what is your real reason why you come in? Because you could have gone into another bathroom. I mean, I had times where I locked the door in the bathroom and somebody would just open it from the outside, which was possible, and just come in and start peeing, and they thought that was okay to do. So there's no concern for other people in a lot of people's minds, because they're just selfish about, this is what I need, these are my needs. And so I think that when I look at life or something and society and all this kind of stuff, I cannot really say anymore that the reason why people are the way they are is because they've been traumatized. And the reason I say that is because I've been traumatized as well. But I learned to do certain things. I mean, I've been traumatized by the people who raised me. And that's probably everybody. Now, I cannot say that I've had it better or worse than anybody else. I just had it the way I had it. My life wasn't easy or hard. Because sometimes it was easy, and sometimes it was hard. But ultimately, my life is my life. And a part of my life is that I decided at one point that this is what I want to do. And I kept doing it, and now I have my own apartment. So from this kind of perspective, materialistic perspective, because what does materialism do? It sees how much money did you earn on your own, and what can you buy with that? Yes, so people would look down on me in terms of materialism. I have nothing. Yeah, I have these things you could say, but generally, I have nothing. Because my father is paying the apartment. When he would suddenly decide to stop paying that, then it would simply be gone. And now I'm in another peculiar position, and that is I really don't like this kind of world. I don't like it. I don't like to do what people think I have to do. I don't like to work the kind of jobs that people think I should work. But I also don't really like being dependent. But I want to, because that's the problem now. It's either I really do this thing now, and I accept this is how this kind of life is, or I keep rejecting it. Because to me, right, people talk to me about, oh yeah, there's like machines that lift great weights. Because that's what their job is about, right? They deal with hydraulic lifts. Yeah, that's my father's profession. And then he talks to me about this, and I hear what he's saying, but it doesn't really, I mean, yeah, sure, I can see that in a way it is also amazing what we've created. Yeah, now I'm even saying we. That's a real stretch for me. Because normally I actually want to distance myself from this, which is probably good. Because I would have never created any of this, because it's all kind of destructive, right? Everything that we use, including this laptop, is kind of destructive. And it's disrupting. It's actually disrupting the flow of life. Because now you're going to sit at home and you're going to watch this instead of going out and talking to real people or listening to them. Because I'm in that sense am just a fantasy that is somewhere speaking to you from a place that you may have forgotten exists. And so, right, so now I'm in this place where I have been placed, and I'm sometimes uncertain of how to deal with this. Because I seem to be reluctant to live in ways that other people want me to live. But now I've been pushed out, I also feel like I have to make other choices. So I'm constantly on the verge of saying, and that's what I'm trying to do now again, that I say I'm just going to have to get another job. But what does that mean? Well, it means that maybe I start saying yes, because until now I've simply said no to all kinds of things. And now I have the feeling, alright, maybe I'm saying yes now. But to what? Because I don't really want to, when I'm alone in this room, I often feel like I hate this life, I hate this world. It's all a pile of shit. Electronics don't really mean anything to me. What they mean to me is I can share my thoughts with other people and show them that there, for me, are a lot of reasons to be depressed right now. Because I'm living in a country that is so separated, that has been torn apart by war and by hatred and fear, And the people who live in it are being controlled with that fear. And even speaking about it brings up also topics of fear inside of me, because there are people who literally, consciously control people with their fear. And so if somebody talks about this, you don't know what's going to happen to you. That's just the truth. You don't know what's going to happen to you. And I don't want to be carted off because they say, you're like this, you're a naysayer, you say no to us, so we have to be against you, right? You don't want to be shot in the streets or anything like this, right? I don't have the feeling it's gonna happen, but the fear is still there, and I have to deal with this. And I have been doing this for quite a while now, that I speak about the topics that I find relevant. It's already been clear that I cannot talk about Corona on here, because that's just against the rules. Well, I could talk about it, but only if I would say what they want me to say. But I can't do that. And even saying that already jeopardizes what I'm doing here. And you see that for me as a person, as a human, as a being who wants to speak the truth and then sits down here, and I really want to talk about the things that are really relevant. And of course, all these things are just distractions. They just distract you from the truth that it doesn't really matter whether the earth is round or flat. What matters is how you feel about life in this moment. And so when I came back yesterday, I came here, I did my stuff, I was lying in the bath, and I felt dead. I felt alive, but also really dead. Like my whole body was aching, and I had no idea why. It's like my lower back was killing me. And it was hard to say why. Maybe something with root chakra or whatever. And so what I did was, I picked myself up, I cleaned the bath, I put on fresh clothes, I kept the heater off, I lay down on my mattress, and I started to sleep. And what I realized was that I couldn't really sleep. I was kind of like dozing off between maybe being and non-being. And my whole body started. First I started to get incredibly hot. Then everything started to hurt. Like my lower back was really painful. It was one of these nights where you don't know how to lie because everything just hurts. And then even now, it says like, you've been carted off here. You've been carted off. Well, I can't help that now, right? But that's how I feel, right? This is how I felt. They didn't like me the way I was. And now I'm here. And they're willing to pay for that. And that's okay. But it still feels a little bit shit. But yeah, now I'm out of the way. What I have to do is continue and just do whatever I want, because the message I got was, your ways are not really welcome here. And that's really strange. So at the same time, I'm really grateful that I have this apartment. But as I said it yesterday, it also comes with a punch in the face. Because I wanted to do this my own way, I thought that before long I would just keep recording videos, people would buy my books and listen to my music, and I would start earning money, and then I could just do this by myself. Now I'm actually really grateful because, to be honest, I'm quite broken. I haven't really realized it, but I'm really broken. Like emotionally, I've been screwed so many times, I'm like really broken. And so this place is the next step, you could say, in my healing journey. And it's a challenge, for sure. It is a challenge. For me now, it seems like I have to get a job because this is taking longer than I thought. And there are certain things I just want to have or do or keep doing, and for that you need money. And I cannot keep running back to my parents because now I'm one step further of being out of the door, right? And in that sense, I have to admit I still do need help. And so what I have to do now is, right, you can't say, yeah, I've already applied for a job. Only when he asked me to have an interview, I said I don't want it. And now I realized I actually wanted it. I was just afraid of taking it. But now I'm in a different place. And suddenly it seems like the plausible thing to do, to simply accept the job and say, yeah, I'm gonna take it. And that makes sense, to take a job. And why does it make sense? Because there are certain things that I want to continue, because if I don't do that, I'm just gonna be like a vegetable, lying around waiting until somebody comes to eat it. But I want to be more like the farmer that farms the vegetables and then goes around gives it to people, right? So in order to farm, I need to plant seeds, and this of course is one of my seeds, but I also have to acknowledge that it takes time and patience to bring in the harvest. And you have to be planting seeds now so that you can harvest them later. So I'm going to keep doing this, not as much as I did it. And that's also the beauty about it, because if you only do this, it's kind of a trap, right? It's really hard to enjoy doing this, to enjoy creating, if you only create because you're afraid that you won't earn money any other way. Or if your only reason for creating is because you hate society and you just want to shove it into their face that you don't need them. Well, the problem is that last night was really hectic. I had like cold shivers. I was verging, like skipping between feeling hot and cold. But I knew there was energy being released. There was some form of healing. And whether you want to say that's just bullshit, whether you want to say, well, that's just esoteric nonsense, it helped me to get through it. And when I woke up the next day, because I did sleep for some time, I woke up and I felt better. Like my back was less hurting. And I didn't feel hot or cold anymore. But then it still took me an incredible amount of time to pick myself up and then walk back to my parents' place to pick up my electronic gear, which I had planned already. Wow, and I still feel this, I don't know, it's like at some point in my lower back. It's really hard to say what this is about, but because it is the root chakra down there, I assume it has something to deal with it, and I think we can all agree that healing is very unpleasant. In order to heal, you have to really suffer. Like, that is something I think we can all agree on. I mean, right, if you're doing a sugar detox, because sugar is toxic, yeah, maybe not in low quantities, but in high quantities, it's very toxic, and it just riles you up, and it makes your life like super fast-paced, which it actually isn't, right? It's just that for some reason humanity really wants to be really fast about everything, and so they eat sugar and drink coffee. And so that probably was also one reason why I felt the way I felt yesterday, because I hadn't drinking coffee in a while. What's a while? A couple of days, maybe a week. But I was dreaming about it, right? And I at least had taken down my sugar consumption. And right, so this is not the usual pleasure cacao drink. This is more like, I don't really feel like drinking this. But that's what I mean about, it's not just about that it's super nice. It's also about, why are you drinking this? Because I'm drinking this because I said at one point in my life, I want to heal, right? And I want to love and all that. And now I have to make certain choices that honor this decision, right? I said I want to live when I was in Amsterdam, fading away into nothing. And I could have probably left at that point, but I said I want to live. And that seems to be a challenge. And now I'm glad I made it this way. Wow. It never tasted like this.
dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them. Uspensky, a student of Virginia. But I had an inner conviction that something had already changed in me, and that now everything would go different. This is a nice one about Brigitte in a sense. Our friends found us becoming dull. Brigitte said, there is worse to come. He is an interesting man who lies well. You've already begun to die. It is a long way yet to complete death, but still a certain amount of silliness is going out of you. You can no longer deceive yourself as sincerely as you did before. You have now got a taste of truth. That one is recognized. The one you can no longer deceive yourself as sincerely as you did before. That word sincerely is just so nice. How sincere we've been in our deception, in our self-righteousness. Ramakrishna. The nearer you come to God, the less are you disposed to question and reason. When you come up to Him, when you behold Him as the reality, then all noise, all disputations are at an end. Then it's time for sleep, for the enjoyment which comes in samadhi, in which one is in a state of communion with the blessed vision divine. A Zen statement. When an ordinary man attains knowledge, he is a sage. When a sage attains understanding, he is an ordinary man. So that when we finish this entire journey, we will then fully be the statement of nothing special. Very reassuring. Kabir, dancing is not for me anymore. The mind no longer plays the tune. What was empty is now full. The vessel of desire is broken. The gown of desire has become filled. All illusions are gone. Parts enough of my pleasure. I can act no more. Friends and companions have all forsaken me. The restless ones are steady at last. All disputes are settled. Kabir says, by Ram's grace, he has found his full reward. Thomas Merton. As soon as a man is fully disposed to be alone with God, he is alone with God no matter where he may be. In the country, the monastery, the wood, or the city. The lightning flashes from east to west, illuminating the whole horizon and striking where it pleases. And at the same instant, the infinite liberty of God flashes in the depths of that man's soul as he believes. At that moment, he sees that though he seems to be in the middle of his journey, he has already arrived at the end. For the life of grace on earth beginning of the life of glory. Although he is a traveler in time, he has opened his eyes for a moment in eternity. Now, some of that may be said in a way that's difficult for us to hear just yet. For example, the life of grace on earth is the beginning of the life of glory. May I say that perhaps by the end of the course, if not now, you will recognize that you are primarily no longer existing with your basic identification on the plane of reality that you started out with. That you are already a novice or a participant in another realm or loca or plane of consciousness that becomes more real than the one you left behind. It, of course, will turn out to be an illusion too, but that will come in time. And these are some instructions to you from Chuang Tzu about this course. Ask directly. Don't listen with your ears. Listen with your mind. No, don't listen with your mind. Listen with your spirit. Listening stops with the ear. The mind stops with recognition. But the spirit is empty and waits on all things. And the way gathers in emptiness alone. Emptiness is the fasting of the mind. It's easy to keep from walking. The hard thing is to walk without touching the ground. See, part of our head trips about courses is we go back into a certain perceptual frame of reference about stuff. And who are we again? We are the researcher. We're the judger, collector, observer, analyzer, using our analytic mind identifier. There is another way of doing this whole trip, and that is by being so empty, by being so non-judgmental. And if you're taking 3 or 4 courses, you will go insane if you try to analytically bring it all together. Because there is an incredible amount of paradox in the situation. And the rational mind will be boggled, I assure you. Now, I have no trouble whatsoever loving Trungpa taking teachings from it, loving Maharaji taking teaching, going to a Christian monastery taking teaching, sitting in Zen Buddhism and taking teaching, and so on and so on. To me, it all comes together, but I wouldn't try to analytically tell how it comes together. It comes together because I decided at one stage of the game to open Pandora's box and let it all in. And whatever would float, would float. I even remember when it happened. It was back at Harvard, and Tim Leary and I were doing research on psychedelics at Harvard. And Harvard was getting a little concerned because we had just ordered $500,000 of LSD from Switzerland. And they set up a watchdog committee, which was unheard of for faculty members to watch over each other. But it was getting pretty desperate. And we couldn't, I was on that committee with other men, and we couldn't agree on anything. So finally, some of the faculty had a public meeting in order to put down our work. And the thrust of the meeting was that we were not scientific, mainly because we were ingesting these chemicals ourselves. And how could you be a scientist when you were changing your perceptual viewpoint in the midst of your observing study? Now, there is a very rich tradition in psychology called introspectionism, but that's in very low repute because of takeover of behaviorism. And in behaviorism, everything must be publicly reproduced. It bought physics as a model for human study, and therefore rejected all inner experience other than what could be said outwardly and written down and then studied as the written material, not as what would happen in science. And Timothy took the stand, I am a scientist, you people don't understand what science is. And Timothy happens to be a damn good philosopher of science, and I think he had a very good argument. And he protested that they were persecuting science because of their own position. I was experiencing being caught in the middle of a situation that the most powerful things that ever happened to me were happening to me through every Saturday night. And that somehow that was more real to me than what I was doing teaching Freudian psychodynamics on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I was not sure that I could bring this stuff together at that point. And I took a stance quite different from Timothy. I said, you're absolutely right, gentlemen. I am no longer a scientist. Turning in my badge. From now on, I should be considered a dabber. I'm David. And you may study me to see what happened to him who did that in the 60s. Too bad about poor Dick. That one, right? And you can study, and you can be the scientist. You can have the role. I give it up. He dwells for innumerable years in the heaven of those who did good. And every man who failed in yoga is born again in the house of the good and the great. He may even be born into a family of yogis, where the wisdom of yoga shines. But to be born into such a family is a rare event in this world. Now, if you can begin to reflect on your own life, as I do, as a continuing part of an unfolding drama, and that which family you took birth in, who your father turns out to be, who your mother turns out to be, who your brothers and sisters turn out to be, what experiences you have had thus far in your life are all part of a predetermined karmic package. And that all this is running off perfectly lawfully. There is no chance in the system. The laws of reincarnation, the laws of karma are invented. And there is no force in the universe that is aside from it. You say, well, is God aside from the laws of karma? Well, God, in a way, is the laws of karma. And there's a question of why someone would break their own law, though they have the capacity to destroy the whole thing with a thought, why he or she or it would do it. Now, all this that is talking about reincarnation sounds awfully solid, like you are somebody who is passing through birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. And who is that somebody? Who is that somebody? And to bring it together for you a little bit with other systems, we quote again from the Hollywood. There are no real ego entities hastening through the ocean of rebirth, but merely light waves, which according to their nature and activity, manifest themselves here as men, there as animals, and elsewhere as invisible things. Every act you create, every act you do, depending on the desire connected to that act, creates in your mind what in Hinduism are called vasanas, or subtle thought forms. And they remain. And when you die, they remain. Because what dies is the physical body. And there are sheaths, and these sheaths go. And what are remaining are these subtle mental tendencies, which function like a DNA code, which determine the next round. And as you meditate more deeply, you will begin to see your own mind Coming into existence, existing and dying. Coming into existence, existing and dying. Coming into existence, existing and dying. But over that continuity, you will see.
You made a song from that. Coming into existence, existing and dying.
What's interesting, the question is, if you create karma now and then you are born again, are you the same person that's reaping the karma who sowed it? And it's much like if you take a candle and light another candle, is it the same flame? Or is there merely a transmission from one to another to another to another? And really, the person who's reaping the karma, like you are reaping the karma of incredible past lifetime. At one point in the Pali literature,
I'm not sure.
Bhikkhus asked Buddha, why did so-and-so, this very, very high
something around us,
why did he die such a horrible death? I mean, it isn't fair. He's been so pure. He's
I think it's a disturbing word.
Such a high bhikkhu. Why should he die such a horrible death? And Buddha said, well, I'll tell you how it is. Some 500 births ago, he killed his parents. And he's been paying for it every birth. Now, I can experience in my own life that when I go to India and go into these villages and I find myself doing sadhana and sitting in a very simple environment, and realize that I came out of a Jewish middle-class Boston environment where 12 years ago, I didn't even know the word yoga. And if anybody had said, 12 years from now you'll be a yogi, then I would, on the heart of the fact, I would have laughed. Because it's a drag. See? Because if I take that role, I've got to sit, and everything that comes near me, I've got to say, well, will I accept it? What is the probability of its reoccurrence? How many sigma? And I've got to live in a probabilistic model and sit with the skeptical stance of doubt, which always keeps me a certain distance from the here, because I always have to be one thought away. And I realize I don't want to be one thought away from life anymore. I want to dive into the soup and the hell with it, and whatever would happen would happen. I want to get to the point where when I sit in India in a village, and people tell me stories about miracles that would turn the hair of Westerners gray, I say, yeah, of course, far out. And I can mean it. As far as I'm concerned, it's all true. And if it isn't, that's his problem, not mine. Okay? Now, this puts some burden on you. Because I'm not going to represent your super ego. I'm not going to sit and be critical. I'm just going to be data. And therefore, you have the choice of which stance you will take. Are you going to say, oh, the hell with it, let's go? Or are you going to say, well, I'll watch and keep an open mind? It was like, well, to show how many incarnations you can cram in one lifetime. Let me say that at Harvard, I was a member of a junta, a group of young Turks in the social relations department who were trying to toughen up the department by more statistics requirements, experimental methodology. And at that time, when parapsychological phenomena occurred, I would say, very interesting. We certainly must keep an open mind. And that was my professional position. Then I started to take psychedelics, and all these things started to happen to me. And I said, I have ingested a psychotropic agent, and I am having a hallucination, and it's fascinating. And then, a lot like what Carl Jung does in Memory, Dreams, and Reflection, I said, fortunately, I can come back to my family and my home and to reality. That was another stage. Then, as time went on, it became less and less clear which one I was coming back to. And then, as I stopped worrying about that, which made you very edgy in terms of mental health, phenomena started to occur to me when I was not under a psychedelic. So I had no recourse to the fact that it hadn't happened to me, it had happened to somebody else. So I couldn't use the scientific one. It's very interesting. You must keep an open mind. It just happened to me. Nor could I say, well, it was a psychotropic ingestion of hallucination. So I was left without a defense. And there is a predicament about blessed are your eyes for they see, and your ears for they hear. That there are phenomena which we will be reflecting upon in this course that are available to her or to him who has not veiled herself or himself from them through attachment to your own thought. All of it is available to everyone, but it depends on who you think you are as to whether or not it is available to you. And that's why the stance you take in the way you are responding to education has a lot to do with whether or not you can totally drop Tibetan Buddhism, whether you can drop the Gita. Those of you that aren't familiar with that term, it's from Robert Heinlein's strange language. It means become one with, be consumed into. Drop means that if we ground one of us up in a stew and the other one ate it, we would drop one another and it wouldn't matter who did eat it. Okay? That's Heinlein's definition of drop. They kept translating what they heard into their habitual language. They had ceased to hope and believe there might be anything new. Now, in designing the program for Naropa, my one request was that meditation be an integral part of the Institute. Because it seemed to me that what we bring to a new environment are our predisposing set of thought forms. And that they filter everything so that nothing really ever happens. You notice that? Like you come and you say, it's all going to be new and Boulder, and then later on you say, you know, Boulder is just like that. I mean, you've been through enough of these by now. I know. I'm neurotic in New York, I go to Chicago, and I end up being just as neurotic in Chicago. Because you keep recreating your own hell, or heaven, whichever one you're attached to. And when you create this universe, you're creating it because your mind, you walk into a new situation and immediately you label it in terms of your own attachment. And that's what we're going to talk lots about. First of all, I'm going to assume that everybody has read the Bhagavad Gita. It'll only take you about 3 or 4 hours to read anyway. May I suggest you read it the first time as a very interesting story. May I next suggest that you read the Gita twice more. For the first time, after we have finished our discussion of the basic conflict that Arjuna finds himself in, and you have personalized that sufficiently to understand what the predicament is, that you read it identifying with Arjuna. That is, you read it as if you are in. That is, once you have realized what your own conflict is, it gets you to itch enough to want to scratch to come to Boulder. Okay. Use that as a framework from which to read the thing and hear Krishna telling you how it is about your own battle. And when you are ready, may I suggest a third reading of the Gita, in which you read it identifying with Krishna. Because that, in fact, is who you really are. Now, that will raise some interesting problems for you. Because many of us have a difficult time thinking of ourselves as God. But don't let that upset you, because we have an exercise called contemplation, which suggests a way of approaching the study of the Gita, especially when you're doing the third reading where you're identifying with Krishna. Because you will read a line and you'll say to yourself, I never would have said that. But in fact, Krishna did say that. And we are opening ourselves to this book. So then you will sit down and you will take the line that you don't understand, and you will take the way you think it ought to be, and you will just sit with those two things. And you will sit with it. And you will sit with it. And you let your mind wander around it, and you come back to it, and you will take the Gita shloka by shloka. Not every one of them. Sometimes you read a whole page and you'll be, yeah, sure, right on, I agree with that. Then you'll come to line and say, what? You know, like, I never would have said that. That's the one. That's the one. See? Just sit with it. Who's the I that would never have said that? Because these lines will show you where you're holding, where you're stashing. This will show you where, okay? You may end up underlining the Gita and stabbing Krishna in the heart. That's up to you. That's your problem, not mine. All right? But in the meantime, you will have the opportunity to work with this shloka by shloka as a contemplation exercise and the different things you can do as contemplation and stuff like that. And now, those of you that want to leave, and those of you that would like to sing are more than welcome. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
This is CD2 of an 18 CD set containing sessions from a 4-week course by Ram Das titled The Yogas of the Bhagavad Gita. This CD contains session number 2 titled Context and Conflict.
The basic thrust of the Bhagavad Gita concerns karma yoga. You say, oh, I understand karma yoga, doing service consciously, without attachment, and that's all fine. I do it all the time. That may well be, but if you're really unsure whether in fact you are doing it all the time, it would be useful for you to take on a specific exercise in which you do some task that you wouldn't normally otherwise do, and do it specifically as an exercise, say, kind getting out of your own ego melodrama and do something for someone else. So doing it not in a romantic way, as we talk about that, but doing something. I want to give at the outset a contextual mention of how the Bhagavad Gita fits into the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is a huge book which covers a long, long period of history And at one level, it's a historical study of the kingdom. At another, it's an incredible symbological study of all human interactions here, and all human emotions and motivations. It's like an incredible psychology that's in the form of drama. And it's written from a very conscious point of view. So you can read it in a very romantic, melodramatic line, or you can look at it symbolic. And right in the middle of it is this dialogue between Reusch and Arjuna. The story itself concerns the kingdom of Barbarian, which is a kingdom in northern India. And there were two brothers, Pandu and Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra had been born blind. He was the eldest brother. So Pandu ran the kingdom. He became the king because the older brother was blind and couldn't be the king. And what that blindness represents, every Hindu pundit that had a great time with it, you could say it represents the fact that he was so attached to his son, Duryodhana, which you read, or you have, that his attachment made him blind to the Dharma, or blind to the truth, or blind to the higher wisdom. Or you could say that he was the human body, which was blind because it didn't have the higher intellect. Pandu had two wives, Kunti and Madri, and he had 5 children. And of these 5 children, these are the good guys, by the way. Yudhishthira is the oldest, and he's like the embodiment of Dharma. He has one minor failing: he likes to play dice, which you will see is what is the particular predicament we find ourselves in as Purushottam. Bhima, the second son, is very strong and reckless, and Arjuna, the third, is very pure, noble, chivalrous, heroic. And there are 2 more twins by Marjorie. Dhritarashtra, the other brother, the blind king, he had 100 children by one wife. Now, you have to face these things in the Mahabharata. I mean, you face in the Old Testament, there's no problem there, about 120-year-old men having 5 children. Things are different at different times. Well, now, Pandu, the son of the brother who was the king, accidentally killed the Brahmin, which is a very bad thing to do. And to atone for this, he retired to the forest to do some austerity. And he left the kingdom in the care of his blind brother. Now, the children grew up, and Duryodhana, who's the son, he's the head of the Kauravas. He's the head of the bad guys. He is very, very jealous of the oldest son of Pandu, because the oldest son of Pandu can take over the kingdom, and he wants it for himself. And so there are hundreds of pages of descriptions of how Duryodhana went about trying to get rid of the Pandavas so that he could get the kingdom. He would invite them all to a huge celebration, and he had a huge palace built for them that was made all of flammable material. And during the night when they were all asleep, he set a fire, but they had all been warned by a loyal servant, and they escaped underground, and they went off in the woods, and they were hiding. And it's the 5 boys and the mother.
All right. So sometimes I like to listen to audiobooks or recordings of other people. But then I also always get to the point where I say, all right, now I want to speak again, right? Because I realize that these people have had their times, and that they did bring us a certain way of the path, such as Terence McKenna, such as Ramdas. But I also have to acknowledge that Ramdas was in a completely different position. He went to India because he had earned a lot of money as a psychiatrist. Money was no issue for him. He had that. Or so I think the story goes. He didn't actually talk a lot about the money that he still had. And I'm not quite sure what he did with it, if he gave it all away or if he kept it and then I don't know, donated it to Maharaji or something, you know, or he just used it for traveling, right? I'm not quite sure, because he started out having a lot of money. And now what he's talking about is the life of a person who escaped society, went to India, was taught by a guru, and basically did everything he was told to do. Now you could say the only choice he really had to make was whether to do it or not. So he comes to a person and for some reason or other he realizes that this is a being who's pure love and he loves that being so much. And it's helping him grow, because that's the people that we want in our lives. It's the people that help us grow. We don't want the people that make us small. We want the people that help us grow. And now Ramdas was in the position, he escaped his life as a psychiatrist, which was a good shot. And because he realized he had no idea really how to exist anymore. I mean, that's the way I understand it, from what he's talking about and from what he did. He was trying to find something that showed him another way of life, and he found that. He found that in India, in the form of Maharaji, which was his focus point to whenever he felt lost or miserable. He would remember the feeling that he had when he was with Maharaji and the feeling he had, like the way he felt about Maharaji. And then he would use this feeling for meditation practices, for doing yogic exercises. But it also was clear from some of his talks that when Maharaji died, or left his body, however you want to see it, to say he left his body seems to me also a way of rejecting the idea or the possibility that he actually had died. Now, when that happened, he kind of fell into a hole at some point. You know, he ate meat again. He kind of went halfway back to where he started. Not exactly, probably. But you could feel that it was a little bit hard for him to hold the space of love with, you know, the thought that Maharaji wasn't there anymore. That he could be in his presence, which is basically the presence of consciousness, which means you're holding the space, and in that space everything is heaven, which means right now I'm in a space of heaven to a certain degree, but I can feel hell just lurking somewhere on the periphery of my heaven. There's a little bit of hell lurking. And it looks like a little, like, slimy monster that's just waiting for a chance to just like grab me and pull me into hell. Just to torture me a little bit more. Because who is that guy that he deserves to be in heaven when I'm still lurking in hell? Well, because you like being in hell. And the thing is actually that a part of me doesn't mind being in hell because I was born into it. In a way, I was born into hell. And there were moments that I probably really enjoyed with my mother, with my family, and there were moments where I was just being trampled on. And now the way I see it is that Maharaji is a role model for somebody who, no matter what you did to him, he simply kept loving you. He gave you stuff and he was tough. It's like tough love, because it's the love that's strong. It's the love that makes you get up at 4 in the morning and then go to the river and wash yourself even though it's cold. It's that kind of love that makes you do yogic exercises although you don't really understand why you're doing them, but you're just doing them because you have the feeling that's what your body needs in order to be in heaven. And for Ramdas, you could say that he had it easy, but that's not entirely true, because to face love and to accept that there is someone that loves you also puts you in a very delicate position, because if that person would stop loving you, you would live in hell. And that to me is something where I can say there's a difference between me and other people. So there are other beings, there are beings that are connected to spirit, that channel energy, and they hold the ground so that they can create a kind of a heaven. And there are beings that are, for whatever reason, are closer to hell than others, because maybe they're halfway drowning. And it breaks my heart sometimes to be with my family and see how much they suffer. But I realized also that a part of my job is to simply let them suffer to a certain degree, but also say, I can help you sometimes just by being around and eating your food. Right? Like, I won't eat meat, although a part of me, I have a part that really rejects meat. But there's a part that can certainly see how crispy bacon is really nice. And there's a part in me that also realizes that there's just no way to replace that. I cannot replace bacon that's crispy, fried in a pan, with baked beans and scrambled eggs, right? If I want to replace this thing and look for something that tastes the same way, that looks the same way, and that has the same kind of texture when I eat it, like the kind of crisp that bacon has when it's being fried in its own fat. I mean, that's just like, nice. But the thing is, I can remember how tasty it is, and I can remember how I liked it. But I also realized that one reason why I'm able to hold my ground with nothing but drinking cacao in this room and create a kind of a peaceful environment in which I can be creative is because I stopped eating meat. Is because my diet is mainly plant-based. And now you could ask yourself, what does that mean? Does it mean I can never eat eggs again? Well, I do believe I will occasionally eat scrambled eggs. I think that's a stretch I can take, but I also want to stop eating eggs for a while and then eat them again just to see how it makes me feel. Because I could probably live off ceremonial cacao for a large quantity of my life. But that also comes with the cost of never eating anything that gives me the kind of pleasure that sugar would give me. But eating sugar also comes with a cost. It's a very sticky kind of substance. And it's also heavily processed. So there is a cost to eating certain things, and when I realize this, there's something moving here, right? And it's very strange, because technically now it's there. There should be nothing here. So the question is, what is moving around? And one reason why I put on incense is because, you see, I cannot see what this is, but something's moving here. And now we have to ask ourselves a lot of very important questions, which is, what is moving around here? And partly it feels like, because I'm holding the space, what is moving here, I have the feeling, is it's either good or not. But what is good, right? There's like, I mean, what does it mean? What is good? It's a hard one. Because if you want to understand what good is, you have to understand what bad is. And then you understand that from the perspective of being good, bad is certainly really bad. But from the perspective of being bad, good is something that is bad. So when I sit here and I sometimes feel a little bit uneasy, I feel like something's trying to get in here. Something's trying to get in, but it cannot. This is how it feels like, what I just said. Something is lurking on the periphery of my heaven, and it's trying to get in. And it's circling around me, waiting for a moment to stretch out its claws. Now, is that a bad thing? Or is that just a topic, what has been talked about by people like Ramdas, like the karmic predicament? Right? It's like just energy you have to work with. Maybe that's the trauma of a close relative. Maybe that's just something, some kind of darkness that needs to be transformed. And maybe just by sitting here and holding the space, I'm already transforming it. But I'm not quite sure about it, am I? And that's then fear. So whatever it is that is lurking, in the periphery of your heaven is certainly hell, and that is certainly fear. And you could say fear is the root of all evil, but now it's also distracting me. Why is it distracting me? Because I am not stable in the ways of the Force, right? I'm not 100% where maybe I would like to be, or maybe where Maharaji was, if he was there. From the stories you've been told, you can say he was. But was he always there? Or did he have times where he wasn't there? And from what I've heard, he didn't really do much in terms of walking around. He was mostly just laying and holding the space. And I feel like sometimes if I just sit, like the darkness starts creeping in a little bit faster, because then my body starts to become rigid, and then it's tougher to hold the space. So for me, because I seem to be a little bit different, and maybe I'm in an environment where it takes a little bit more effort to channel energies. Why do I say that? I say that because where Maharaji lived was like a mountain village. It's fairly easy to maintain a peaceful environment if you're close to nature and if you're under a clear sky. It's much easier to be peaceful in such an environment, especially if the environment is being inhabited by other people or beings that acknowledge you for holding the space. But now, in these places that I am usually, it's very hard to hold the space and to maintain it. So when I sit here and I start to get a little bit like, ugh, I start moving. Because it's not always about just sitting here and looking holy. I can do this for a while. But eventually I also have to move my body for whatever reason, to warm up, or I don't know what, just to keep the energy flowing. But if I'm too stuck on I have to sit here and meditate like this, then I cannot, pull the stick out of my ass, which is probably another reason that I try to fast, but that sometimes I just have to take the bullet and eat somebody's food, because there is a energetic exchange when you eat somebody's food, which is also why I don't eat food from everybody. And now, what I would like to talk about is that there are tools in my life that I use to help me channel energy and to be in a bit more peaceful state. And one of these tools certainly is ceremonial cacao. Just when I drank it, I thought I was going to vomit. It's similar in that sense to ayahuasca. Also the bitterness, if you don't add sugar, it's not as bitter. It's also not as intense. Or when you do it, also after fasting, it can be certainly very intense. And I really have the feeling that adding sugar diminishes the potency of the potion, because it is a potion. And I believe we have to start talking about, whatever witchcraft is. I mean, what they're doing there with smartphones and technology, that's hypnosis. That is magic, if you will. They're binding millions of people to the screen and they suck out their energy. Because Netflix does that, people are willing to pay money for them. That is, in a way, hypnosis. That is bewitching people to draw their attention. But you draw their attention to this, and here you extract their life energy. Because what benefit does Netflix have to life itself? None other than it has no benefit. This is like dark magic. This is maybe even voodoo, but voodoo has a very bad connotation. But any form of magic that you use can be used in different ways. If you're glaring at a person with vicious intent, with greed or jealousy, you could say you are bewitching them, even though they might not be aware of it. There will be a cost to them. And they will feel that people have been doing this. At the latest, when they start embarking on their healing journey, they will get to a point where they realize that a lot of the pains and a lot of the things that kept them back was jealousy from other people. And so I'm in a different environment now. This is, you could say, my own space. I can fill it however I want to. And I start to become less afraid of people just coming in. I also made sure that I have both keys to the apartment so that nobody I don't want in here can just come in. And slowly but surely I will fill this place with love and with affection and make it my own. But I also have to be a little bit open about sometimes maybe inviting people for a meal, to say, I'm gonna cook, do you wanna come over? Yeah. So there is that, of course. But that takes time. I have realized it now. That takes time, and I will take the time. And what I also feel at the moment is that I'm very eager to get stuff out of the way. Like, I see myself running back to my parents' place and just taking everything just to show them I don't need you, and to just carry it here as fast as I can. Just to prove to them, yeah. But I also realize now is the time to be a little bit more gentle. Not just for myself, but also for them. Because when I left today, I said, I'm gonna come back tomorrow. And if I would come now, I would shock them. And I don't want to do that anymore, so I say, I'm gonna come back tomorrow. Because I know how I can be. As much as I can be like a very lightful being, I also have the potential to really screw people over. There is this part in me that just wants to sit here and stuff myself with food, like in Spirited Away, that, how's it called, the Own Fates? And just by talking about it, right, I just want to go back and watch that movie again. But the truth is, I don't have to watch it again. I can, of course, if I really want to. But at the moment, to me, it is also enough to simply remember it. Because I've seen it. And maybe at some point I'm going to watch it again, right? Just for the pleasure of doing it. And now I'm a little bit unsure. But I think there's still something missing in this image. And I'm not sure if that is just my greed. Because I think it isn't enough. But I also have the feeling it's just like something's missing here. And now I see green. And sometimes what I also really like, there's always this word in my head and it says hike. So maybe tonight I'm just gonna go for a walk. Because I don't have internet here. So I don't have to be overly concerned about just walking everywhere all the time. Wait. What? It's like, what did he just say? I don't have to be overly concerned about being online all the time. And that is, as much as it is a challenge, a great relief. But I also have to acknowledge the fact that the reason why I can feel like this now is because I have the feeling I've done a lot already. Right? So when you're doing your job, there is probably a certain time where you feel like you have to do a lot more. And then there comes a time where you realize maybe now it's going to be a little bit more relaxing. And when that time comes, that is your challenge, to simply slow down and to appreciate that things are going to change a little. And for that, then I can say I drink ceremonial cacao because I have the feeling that this is going to help me now to progress into the future and open me up to this kind of experience. And this is how I use or engage with psychedelic substances, which I consider to be basically anything. That's the feeling I have, right? It's like basically anything that you can think of is psychedelic. Because what is psychedelic? Your nature is psychedelic. And there are foods that bring you away from your nature, and there are foods that bring you closer to your nature. And the foods that bring you closer to nature are the foods that are, guess what? Natural. And natural foods are the ones that are as close to the way they're being found in nature as you can get to them. So for instance, chickpeas that you buy raw and then soak and then gently cook yourself at home are at least a little bit closer to nature than chickpeas that you buy in a can. Also because of the amount of energy that you put into it. And chai. Now, why does it want to be like this? Very interesting. Okay. And now comes the green. You see, that's still where I say it's certainly about letting go. And these I want to have round, so I turn on the 1:1 aspect ratio. And that's sometimes also the interesting part of not knowing why you do certain things, but you simply go on and do them anyway. And that is the essence of my art, right? It's like, you can ask questions, but ultimately the lesson is the fewer questions you ask, the easier it's going to be for you. Because the more you want to know why you're doing things, also the more you're going to understand that you actually have no idea. Because I couldn't have planned this, alright? Like, just talking about it a little bit from my own perspective, I was living in the mind of Christopher, who had the belief that he's going to be working until something comes up. Now, my idea was that I'm going to be working until I have earned enough money so that I can leave this place with my own strength. And now what I had to realize is that it wasn't so much about my own strength, but also about the realization that it's the community that helps you to grow, that help us to grow as people, right? So I cannot claim everything that happens to me simply for myself, because I made certain choices in my life and I said, this is how I would like things to be. And then life said, okay, you want this. This is how you can have it. You want to be with this woman, well, accept that she wants to be alone for a while. And trust that it's all going to work out fine. Now, you want to have your own apartment, you've been basically screaming that into yourself. Well, now you have to accept that you're only going to get that if you learn to accept help. But it's actually not really true, because I already know how to accept help. I just thought I was getting sick of it. And I didn't want to accept help from my parents, because I wanted to show them I can do this on my own. But the truth is, I have been doing a lot of things already on my own. But certain things, I just didn't manage. As hard as I tried, it just didn't work out. Until it got to the point, wow. Right, so either I stay inside. You see, I don't really know where this is going to go. This image is a little bit weird. I don't really understand it. And I say that in a way that is supposed to sound cheerful. But what I really would like to do now is to simply turn on the internet and watch a movie, right? But I also realize that as soon as I'm going to do that, I'm going to start to feel restless. And after 5 minutes, I'm going to turn off the movie and do something else anyway. So I think what I'm facing right now is what you may call some kind of transition from, hey, normally in this situation, I would just pass time by watching movies. But at this point in my life, I also have to acknowledge that this isn't really the way to go anymore. Not because I couldn't enjoy it at all. Not even because I think it's really bad to watch movies in general. You know, it's just like when you start watching movies for what it is, it's just really hard to convince yourself that what you're doing is really nice. And that's the position I find myself in. And now I could accept this image as it is, but sometimes I just don't really like it. Because I'm getting restless, you know, I am restless. Now this is a bit more like it. Then I also have the feeling this has to change. But actually I want to do something else. I already thought that I wanted to do that. I wanted to copy this and put it on top. But I also realized I really have to go to the restroom. But for now, it's okay to tell you that that's what I'm going to do afterwards. But first, I want to finish this image. because I didn't become famous for doing these kinds of images because I always hurried through them, right? You could say I became famous because I was resistant to stop doing them. And now this I really like. And the interesting part is, what do I see here? Like, standing like this, what is this? It's a forest. I didn't know what I was drawing, I just had an idea. It's like standing like this, like a tree, right? You're standing tall, you're stretching out your arms, and what are these? That's like others. So from the forest that my parents were growing, you could say, to protect their children, now I have risen above in a certain way, and now I can pass on what they taught me, because they did teach me to the extent that they knew how to be gentle and compassionate and how to help. But the ways to help these days are a little bit different. And now what do I see else in this image? Well, first of all, red is the color of rage. It's also fear and anger, right? The world is ablaze with the fire of ignorance. Now, blue is the color of the throat chakra, which is in connection with truth, basically. And green is the color of healing, and yellow is the sun. So it's also a bit of radiating your light. It's the solar plexus chakra. So it's like red is the root chakra. Then comes orange is the navel chakra. And the solar plexus chakra is yellow, and then green is the heart chakra, and blue is the throat chakra. I think this one is pink, and this one is more like purple. This is the crown, and this is the third eye. So if I would take this image and see it as a representation of myself right now, then I would say that I'm a mixture of everything, that I'm certainly healing a lot of rage, and truth is certainly in there as well, but there's still also a lot of rage, and this is what I'm feeling down here. Yeah, I'm feeling this down here in my lower back, because this is what happened in Germany, at least, with Nazis, with wars, right? They're trying to break our backs. What Churchill said was, it's not the Germans that we want to destroy. What we want to destroy is the spirit of Schiller. And the spirit of Schiller is the free mind. It is Christ consciousness. It is what in Moby Dick or the Whale, what's his name? Herman, I think. If you read this book, what you will realize is that he did have a connection to spirit. Certainly a connection to spirit. Herman Melville, that's the one. And I've been trying to read books. I've been trying to read books, make like an audiobook recording. But what I realize is it doesn't work for me. at the moment. It just doesn't work. Now I have a lot of books in here, and some of them I haven't reread. There's one that I can really recommend to you. It's called Born to Run. One reason why I don't feel like reading books, maybe I'm going to change that. But one reason I don't really feel like reading books is that I have to concern myself with copyright. And that to me is a nuisance. One reason why I started making my own music is because I really disliked copyright claims. Wow, and this is so beautiful. Like, I'm gonna make some recordings at a later stage from here for sure. But just the view I have from here, because I'm in the 4th floor or 5th floor or 3rd floor or something. And it's very beautiful. Like, it's not like super open sky, but I can see a lot from here. And there are houses, but it's so beautiful. I can see the sky, and that's more than anyone could ask for. You see, and this is the beauty about opening up to whatever is happening all around you. Now, let's just see what, this is just where I stop. And I'm just going to open, and then I say go to, so I open the menu, say go to, and then I say page. It has a total of 622. Oh wait, I have to say go to, and then I enter a page and I say, now I'm at 311, I want to go to 114. That's just the page I want to go to now. And now I'm just going to check. And I'm just going to read to you whatever I find here. And this, in a way, you know, this is really opening up to this place now. I don't know why I was afraid to drink the cacao, because right now I feel really good, and that's the experience I often have when I drink or eat or do anything that feels like a challenge, because once I've done it, it's okay. But also surely, if I open up to this place, it means that I'm also opening up to whatever comes afterwards. And that's a bit scary. Okay. Captain, you see him, small drop tar on water there, you see him, well, suppose him, one whale eye, well then, and taking sharp aim at it, he darted the iron right over old Bildad's broad brim, clean across the ship's decks, and struck the glistening tar spot out of sight. Now, said Queequeg, quietly hauling in the line, suppose he him whaley, aye? Why, Dad, whale dead? Quick, Bildad, said Peleg, his partner, who, aghast at the close vicinity of the flying harpoon, had retreated towards the cabin gangway. Quick, I say, you Bildad, and get the ship's papers. We must have Hedgehog there. I mean, Quawkhawk, in one of our boats. Look here, Quawk, we'll give you the... You see, this is already where it stops for me. The thing is, it's important to call things by their righteous name. And what is the right name? What's the truth? And that's when I say, you know, electronics capture consciousness, they're a form of magic, they're a form of voodoo. We may say electricity is scientific, but what it really is, it is a form of magic. Because electricity in itself is energy. But it's the way the energy is being harvested at the expense of living things and at a great cost for the environment. And then it's being spread all over the world, not because you want to promote life in general, but because you want to make money and because you want to keep up these living standards. And at the same time, while I sit here and I look out the window and I see this is really beautiful, like I really like this. This is really beautiful and I really like it. It's like a very beautiful sunset. I'm just gonna share it so that you can have an idea. I don't know, this is not going to come across as I'm seeing it. Yeah, but that's just at the expense of, right? Oh. So what I could do, of course, I could record it with my other camera. And then use it for something else. Because now the beauty is also that I'm in a different environment. And that means I can feel different about what I'm doing here, because this is my own space. I can be in my kitchen and I can cook, right? But that takes time. And for that I need patience. Because I don't have a kitchen yet. And I refused my dad's offer to buy me one. Yeah, I refused his offer. He said, I already have a kitchen for you. I'm going to buy you this kitchen. And I said, I don't want it. Because I want to build it myself. And that, of course, is also a challenge. So now it's also a bit different because I cannot make this image and immediately upload it. And that in itself is a challenge. Now, what I could do, of course, I could buy internet on my phone. And then I could open a hotspot. And then I could use that to post images. But the question is, do I really want that? Because now I'm in this space and I don't have to be concerned about, because what I do a lot during the day is I check emails, I check all kinds of things, and that keeps me busy a lot of the time. So when I sit down and I want to actually relax and meditate, what comes up is, oh, I want to check my emails. Oh, I want to do this. I want to write an email. I want to do this or do that. But now, I don't have internet here. But I can use the internet at my parents' place. And that puts me in a completely different position, because now I'm creating content in advance, and then I go there tomorrow and I upload it and I say, here you go. Do with it whatever you want, right? I'm not really concerned anymore how this is going, how many people watch it. I would really appreciate it if I could go onto YouTube and then simply say, yeah, I don't want to see how many followers I have. I don't want to see how many people watch my videos. This for me would be even better. But I don't have that option, so I have to deal with it. And that's just how it is. So now I'm just going to save this. Oh yeah. So there's also something very important to me, because now I'm in a new environment and I'm speaking about things. You know, this is my job. Now I have people living with me. Not with me, but there are neighbors and such. And these people could start annoying me because I'm talking, which means they're trying to get into my space, but I can't allow them to be in there. So all I can say then is, yeah. I mean, this is my job. I'm a podcaster and a YouTuber, and I have to record myself. And I can't help it that you don't like this. You know, I'm not playing really loud music, but sometimes I'm going to dance, right? And sometimes I'm going to do things, and I'm not going to make it really loud. And I'm not going to do this like really during the night. But you have to get used to the fact that there is a living person here, and I'm really bad at hiding myself, which means that you simply have to get used to me being here. And I also have the opportunity, of course, to change. Because the question is now, so for YouTube, for instance, I could schedule videos so that there's one video per day. Yeah, I can do that. Absolutely, I can do this. But for Instagram, I cannot schedule it. Maybe I don't want to. So the point would be, I start scheduling for YouTube because YouTube takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. The uploading and then the rendering, like all of it takes a lot of time. So it makes sense to schedule that ahead. To just have my working routine ready. And I also realized that to me, it's not really bad if I would have another job next to this. Because once I come back here, I know exactly what to do, right? I make an image, I record something, or I start doing crochet. So having no internet is really nice, because going live was really a trap for me. Because it got me to this point where filming myself while thinking that people are watching me, I was kind of getting off on that, and I didn't like that. So this is really a chance for me now. So I'm just going to keep doing some of the images for Instagram, and I'm just going to post them whenever I feel like it. So this is 2023. 0424. So I always have a specific way of how I'm naming. This is one. Then the title is The Truth I See. And it's really strange to not simply publish this. Export. No compression. Yeah, and like this, I can really live with it. Yeah, so tomorrow I also have to plan a little ahead because uploading videos sometimes takes an hour. And that means, what am I going to do in 1 hour of time? Well, I go through my room, I clean my room, I can even upload something, and then I just do something else in the meantime, right? I can write, I'm not quite sure. I can check emails, of course. Talk to people. These kinds of things. But I also know that at the end of it all, I can come back here and just relax into being myself. Because that I found a little bit challenging. And I also feel like it's like 8 o'clock now. I don't know when people sleep around here. You see, I don't know how people are here. Whether they are very perceptive of noises and stuff like this. Wow. Right, say, alright. I have a feeling I don't want to delete these. But I think it's better to delete them. So I can make other things. Alright. So now I've done this. And now I want to do something else. And one thing I want to do is end this recording and simply say, cheers. Maybe thank you for watching. The idea that I have when I'm doing these recordings is that you have a little bit of time that you can spend without worrying about how you feel and simply watch what somebody else is doing. I find that a little bit liberating. So the question is, am I going to stop this recording or am I going to continue? Because how long is this supposed to go? Oh my God. Yeah, my mind certainly keeps slipping towards food quite a lot. And sugar and porn and masturbation. My mind keeps going there quite a lot. So what I saw was, when I got here, the feeling was, welcome to the cave. This is like my cave, right? My retreating point. The problem is, when I turn off this camera now, what am I doing then? Because right now, I don't really have space here. You know, I don't have nothing. That's how it feels like. But what do I have? Well, I have a book and I could read. I think that's what I should do now. Just relax a little without filming myself. To simply enjoy time also without electronics. And then later tonight, I can make another video. Or I make that video now, and while it's rendering, I can record, I can take the time while the video is being rendered and read. And I think that is much better for me, because then I can feel good about reading while I'm taking the time, because at the same time also I have the feeling I'm moving forward, if you understand what I mean. So I feel better about doing exercises when I have the feeling I'm also moving towards the future. And what I realized is that doing this kind of holds, like plank holds, really increase the stability of my body. Like I really feel like it's becoming more like a chimpanzee. Wow. Alright. I'm gonna end it here. I say cheers, thank you for watching, and enjoy.